Hi, everybody. Welcome into another episode of Arsenal Fan Circle, episode 21 of our first season. Mahir, can you believe this is our
Amazing.
21st episode already?
Time flies, eh? Time flies when you're Arsenal supporter.
Yeah, you wanted to fly sometimes faster, right?
exactly my point.
Oh, you know what, Mahir? It's a long summer. You know what I've been playing with the last 24 hours? Trying to solve a Rubik's Cube.
My goodness, I think sometimes we're like a really complex Rubik's cube. That the more you turn, the more complex we get. And just when you think we're getting it right, it just seems to get more jumbled up.
Yeah, I hate the bloody thing. I want to break it apart like I did when I was a kid and fix it that way, you know?
Yeah, like what we should do. Break up the entire defense and fix it. Like break up a Rubik's
Yeah.
cube and just put them together, you know?
Yeah, let's make this. This is the analogy of the Rubik's Cube. We'll call this the Rubik's Cube episode, where we need to break it all up and start over. Because I'm not clever enough to. You know those people that can fix the Rubik's Cube in 12 seconds? I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, or throw it in, throw it in the air and be able to solve it that way with one hand, on one foot. I don't know, these guys.
Yeah, you can just hold it in his hand and flick his fingers and move it that way. Oh, it's impossible.
Exactly.
You know, it's summertime here. Are you heading into the autumn down there? In South,
We're getting into winter.
you're heading into winter in South Africa, and here it is
Yes.
warm. It's warm here.
Oh, not you. Some tomato, please.
It's hard to get my.
Like I was saying,
It's hard to.
it's getting quite cold here. Like I think woody weather, even during the day, a little bit of sun, but mostly overcast and cold, like really cold.
So, our northern hemisphere people are busy. They're probably busy with the summertime, but welcome into our southern hemisphere people who are heading into winter and want to have content to go through the winter. You know?
Yeah, I'm sure we've got, we never get bored of talking about our beloved club that
Yeah.
we support
Yeah.
and what could and what has happened and.
Well, we want to say on this channel we fully support Unai Emery and what he's doing, what the club is all about, and I want to say that first of all, and I know you echo those points as well. To stick with the coach and see what he can do for the second season.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, especially if they do, allow him to do what he needs to do.
Yeah.
In order to, implement his own players, backing of money, coach the team the way he wants to. And, I mean, after next season, sorry, he won't have a crutch really to stand behind if they can give him the full backing. Otherwise, like we say, you believe. Like if we were the coach, we would
I had a little limerick, a little rhyme. Do you know what a limerick is?
Yeah, I know what a limerick is.
So here it goes something like this, and it's for this episode. A new season, a new approach, a new Arsenal, a new coach, a new attitude, a new style, a new energy, a new file. Now, I want to say when I say new coach, I mean we're going to talk about how we think, what I think, and what you think, how the coach can be different this year. The coach will be Unai Emery, but how the coach can do things differently next year.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of ideas that we've thrown around, such as the implementation of a lot of youngsters into the first team.
Mm-hmm.
Emil Smith-Rowe, Reece Nelson, possibly Joe Willock.
Yeah. And
in
that's
Ketia, to get them integrated with the old heads, as per se.
and that's going to be for the second part of the show. But the first part of the show, let's sort of do a rerun. And as painful as it is, let's go through last season. And then for after this episode, we will look forward. But let's look back at this season and what you want to speak a little bit about what Unai Emery had to face on his first day in charge as coach.
I mean, look, he came basically into our club knowing what a big job it is, having to take over a manager who's been with us for 22 years, basically. And not only that, he brought a sort of his sort of own ideology where he was, I don't know if he still may be doing it with the players, giving them tapes or CDs to watch or flash drives full of videos to watch. Basically try and figure out the best 11, best formation, or to instill in certain players a certain work ethic. Say, for example, with the centre backs, you could say, no, you're not positioning yourself enough. You are a lot more rash, when it comes to centre forwards running at you and you leaving us exposed in these certain areas, and something along those lines.
Yeah. Coming into a club that was run by a manager who basically did everything for 22 years. He did a lot of different jobs around the club, and it was a kind of an old and antiquated way of managing the club right now. Arsene Wenger's fingerprints are literally all over the stadium, all over the training ground, and all over the approach to the club. Right?
Yeah, I mean, literally, he did literally everything.
Right down to the design of the stadium, everything, every part of that. And it must be difficult. Put yourself in Unai Emery's shoes, coming into the club for the first time last summer, trying to follow in the footsteps of Arsene Wenger after 22 years. How would you feel if you were that person? Am I here? So Unai Emery, I'll take that forward. Mahir, are you with us?
Sorry, we were just breaking up a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
Connections are sometimes a little pain in the ass.
Oh, technology. I was just saying, how would you feel about being Unai Emery on the first day? Obviously excited and all of that thing, but you had to follow in the footsteps of Arsene Wenger after 22 years.
I will feel, let's see, I will actually feel rather nervous following such big footsteps, following the big footsteps of one of the best managers. He was one of the best managers of all time, basically.
Yeah.
If you can put him in the same bracket as certain greats, like the Fergies, but I mean, essentially, he was one of the greatest managers. And honestly, if I was Emery, I would have felt really nervous coming or having to fill such big shoes.
Even going back as far as talking about Herbert Chapman, he did similar things to Herbert Chapman, especially in his first 10 years, piling up all those FA Cups. Now, I don't think we'll ever see a coach that's going to win as many FA Cups as Arsene Wenger did. He won 7 FA Cups. So amazing achievements. But we do have to highlight the regime and what happened as it started to deteriorate in the last 3 or 4 seasons. Such things as, talk about pampered players, how the players were pampered, Mahir.
Players felt too comfortable. They weren't being given enough competition in these positions, and Basically you can just like, he was like one of those uncles, or like he was like the dad.
Your father,
was
yeah.
basically the father. He just basically put his hand around and said, "Don't worry, just try and do your best. There's no pressure. And the place was so comfy. This player power took over. Basically, we also ran out star players' contracts to where they were worth nothing. I mean, even in recent years, the whole Ramsey saga. I mean, we could have easily gotten about 50 million for Ramsey, and been able to use that money in order to like strengthen our team now that we're struggling for money.
Yeah, and transfers, especially getting money for established players. Lots of indecision in the last few years. Like Alexis Sanchez left in January for a swap deal, and we could have sold him in the summer for 50 or 60 million. Just mismanagement all around. You go from established players that could have gotten you 50 or 60 million, right down to the smaller players who could get you 10 or 15 million. We were selling for 8 million, 7 million.
I mean, we were selling players for less than what we bought them for. So, say for instance, like I currently heard, somebody put in a bid of 10 million for keeps at that time, and we rejected that offer, and somebody came in with, and then the same team came in with 7 million, and we sold him for 7 million, which makes no bloody sense,
Which player was that? Who was that?
That was Gibbs.
Oh, Kieran Gibbs. Yeah, that's a very good example. Exactly. Kieran Gibbs. We have a situation now where possibly, and I saw over in Canon Fodder TV, they talked about, and we had mentioned this throughout our weeks as well. Emi Martinez may now get promoted to the second position as goalkeeper. First team, yeah.
Yeah, which I mean, I don't think any of us are against that, especially because we sold Ospina to Napoli.
Yeah, and you go back.
About, I think 4 million.
Yeah, and you go back even a little bit further now, and the goalkeeper at Juventus was an Arsenal keeper.
Wojciech Szczesny was our keeper.
Yes.
For quite a while, but
yes.
I mean, at certain times, just a change is needed. Like Berlin was desperately needed.
Yes.
None of our keepers were. Let's face it, none of our keepers, even Wojciech Szczesny, wasn't good enough. Even though he has gone to Juventus and was a number 2 and then a number 1, basically.
Yeah, I think that Wenger lost patience with Chesney, and now he's maturing into a good goalkeeper. You need to invest time and patience into certain players, and I think Arsene Wenger kind of lost his Midas touch over the last 4 or 5 years, especially.
But I mean, even having the right training staff to train your players. Steve Bold, we all heard about Freddie Ljungberg. He might swap positions with Steve Bold.
Yes.
So, which means we'll be bringing in more young players into our squad, integrating.
Yeah.
Where Steve Bold, yes, he's a great player, but literally did absolutely bugger all to help this team. Because, I mean, his job was to improve our defense, right?
There's some disagreement out there on that. Some people say that he was not hired to improve our defense, that other people are more, we're dealing with that more, but definitely Boldy is a figure that sort of divides opinion on Arsenal. Arsenal supporters are divided on him. But we'll talk about all of the Freddie Ljungberg stuff a little bit later in the second part of this show. We're going to go for about an hour. We're 15 minutes in right now. So we talked about pampered players. Now, I think some of the mistakes from last year. Obviously, we ran out of our squad. Just got depleted towards the end of the season, so that tells me that we were using our players too much, and our squad just could not hold up. Right? Would you agree with that?
I would agree with that, but it also falls down to like I'm saying, the training staff. Like, surely, if you're the biggest, one of the biggest clubs in the world, the training staff will actually show them, what they should be eating and what exercises to be doing and how much weightlifting and all of that included into their health.
Yeah.
Should be able to help them with fitness.
Do you believe that the club is looking at every aspect of the season just gone and trying to make improvements? Will make improvements, both in terms of training and in terms of personnel, bringing in new players and bringing in different staff as well. They have to be looking at everything top to bottom, right?
Yes, I hope they're looking at absolutely everything because I mean but they need to be looking at our most pressing issues, which is solving their backline and finding a replacement for Ramsey and integrating youngsters into the team. So we have a mixture of basically the Liverpool model, which we discussed with Alex from Canada TV.
Yes. Yes. So let's talk about the season. We started out against Manchester City, and nobody really expected us to beat Manchester City. We lost to Chelsea in a game where we were much more competitive. Probably should have gotten a draw or something like that out of the Chelsea
Probably
game.
the win. I think there was a lot of opportunities in the game.
And then we went on a really, really good run of 22 games unbeaten. And some people would say we were lucky in a lot of those games, and that's true. But we were also using a lot of our established players, and I think this may be part of the problem for the season. We used a lot of our established players, even going to the far reaches of Europe. Do you think that was a good idea in hindsight or a bad idea?
It was a good idea. It's just how would you say? You need you need depth in your squad. You need like what Man City have, where they can, even if two players get injured, there's probably a third player in that same position who's also maybe like world class or talent for the future.
But Mahir, I feel like Emery was in a tough position, maybe from PSG, where he had to show his authority and bring a lot of the established players with him to the likes of Karabag and Vorskla, was it? A few different far-reaching countries to use his squad and show his authority. Do you think he was obviously a little bit scarred from the Neymar situation?
Look, if I was even Emery, I wouldn't personally be feeling scored because these type of situations happen. Player fallouts or where players tend to get the best of a coach because they allow, like we discussed before, too much player power, you know?
Yeah.
And they let that overrun the head coach, the manager, basically. And therefore, managers have to leave. I mean, I'm sure you get sick being a boss, right? And there's constantly this employee and that employee and this employee and that employee giving you problems.
Yeah. I feel like
so I think he just found it as a new challenge, you know.
It was a new challenge. He came to a new club and he saw that these players were pampered, and he wanted to bring them to the far reaches of Europe and include everybody in the squad, saying, listen, you're all in this together. If you play well, you have an opportunity to get into the team. If you do not play well, you will be on the sidelines. If you do not buy into what we're trying to do here, you'll be on the sidelines as well. And I think that's the philosophy he took in the early part of the Europa League. What do you think about that?
I mean, he integrated Ainsley Maitland-Niles quite decently into the squad.
Yeah.
And at that time, I was thinking to myself, listen here, like, it's not his natural position, and you know what? I really don't think we should be playing him, even though we're missing Bellerin. It's a risk too big to take.
Yeah.
Because what if he doesn't make the step up, basically?
That was in the latter part of the season.
And he's proved me actually wrong. I mean, okay, in the beginning, yes, everything was looking very sketchy. Even like just barely winning matches.
Yeah, I remember West Ham. I remember the West Ham game. We were hanging on 2-1, and it took an Iwobi. I think it was a miss hit or something. The ball came to Iwobi, and he was able to finish the game off. But it was not until close to the 90th minute or in injury time. So that was at home versus West Ham. Everton at home was a tough game as well.
Look, we basically ground out by any means necessary those wins. I mean, like 1-0, 1-0, 2-1.
It was great at the time. We were always wondering about if we were a second half team at the time, because very often the game would be very, very even until halftime, and we were never behind actually in those first 20, 24 games. We were never behind at halftime, but we were always drawing, and we would win the games in the second half. How were you?
Basically, second half FC.
How were you feeling at that time of the season?
Look, I was very nervous, as you know, it was papering over the cracks, basically. Winning so narrowly and marginally, and every match, everybody's saying, you know, that's luck, that's pure luck, that's luck, you know, in any other competition. Or if the side was just feeling a little bit better, say for instance the likes of a Watford, we could have lost. Or in Everton, we could have lost 2, 3, 4, 5 of those games.
So I have prepared a major question for you, Gundam News. In the beginning of the season, we were playing a formation of 4 at the back. In the beginning of the season, it was a 4-2-1-3 with Aubameyang playing a lot of the time on the left side. If you remember back in those days, Aubameyang was playing on the left. Were we a better team back then when Aubameyang was playing on the left?
I don't think we were a better team when we were playing with 4 at the back. Personally, I believe we should be playing 4 at the back.
Yeah, and that was with 4 at the back. A lot of the time, Rob Holding was playing with probably Socrates, Bellerin, maybe Monreal, and then you had Xhaka and Torreira, who were playing a more natural game. Both players sitting in front of the back 4, and then I think you had Ozil at the time, and then Lacazette, Aubameyang, and one of Iwobi or Mkhitaryan at the time. And it seemed like a much more balanced team in the earlier part of the season than the latter part of the season. For me, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we weren't getting so nervous. I mean, having a solid back 4 makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
In playing a 3 with 2 wing backs, basically, you know, especially if wing backs, as we do know, Kolasinac is more attack-minded, and he tends to leave the midfield exposed. And when that happens, Torreira and them can't keep up, and a mistake is made, and it's a vital mistake, and we end up losing the game, you know?
Yeah, so charting what Emery did last year, we went 22, 24 games into the season. We were in good shape, and then we hit a sticky patch. And the last was probably after the Bournemouth away game. We headed into the December program. You remember December?
Yes, I remember December quite fondly.
Yeah, we probably our best game of the season was the North London Derby versus Tottenham. 4-2, best game of the season for us. in terms of our emotions, our passions. It was even better because we were 2-1 down at halftime, I believe. That's part of the reason why we remember this as a really, really good game. And then Ramsey came on and changed the whole game.
Absolutely, had a mad impact on the game. Immediate,
Hmm.
and you could see now. I mean, we could see towards the end of the season how much we needed a Ramsey around.
Yes. And maybe we'll talk about how we can. We're obviously losing Ramsey. We're still suffering from the regime of the last 3 or 4 years in losing players. And we'll get into talking about Raul and all that stuff a little bit later. But let's just put a punctuation on the season. And, let's talk about Ozil next because it was around about December when Unai Emery looked at the team and he decided Ozil was not doing enough work for him or enough work for the team. What do you think?
Yes, I fully agree with that. I just think, unfortunately, he just hasn't proven to be any. He hasn't proven to be that person that we needed, that player that we needed. Our squad.
I feel like Unai Emery sort of phased Ozil out of the team in the hopes that he could move him on in January. What's your thinking on that?
But I mean, yeah, but he brought him back into the team, which I don't understand. He still
Yeah,
tried to integrate him into this team.
yeah.
And
I think he.
I mean, we've seen so many fallouts, and all these. I honestly think he was giving bullshit excuses. Saying every week we were saying, "Oh, my toe is injured, my finger is injured, my left nostril is injured."
My back spasm again.
Exactly, back spasm this, back spasm that, and I was saying this guy is he was playing way too much. Instead of concentrating on the football and being a quality player, he was focusing on a whole lot of other stupid things.
Yeah. No, exactly.
I believe now.
No, to answer your question, Mahir, I believe he brought him back into the team after January, so you can put him in the shop window a little bit and hopefully get him moved this summer. And I think that's the plan that the club has come to formulate. I believe most people in the club are trying to move Ozil along. Is that what you're thinking? The infrastructure, the team behind Emery is also in favor of moving Ozil on.
Look, I hope everybody gets together, everybody on the board and on that team, because we now need to be making the. I think everybody's saying this is going to be the biggest. This should be the biggest transfer window ever.
Yeah.
For us, because massive wholesale changes, not just like I was saying in our previous podcast, like a fire sale, basically.
Yeah, a fire sale. You were saying a 2-for-1.
But I don't care, 2-for-1.
Any
Buy
kind of
one,
deals.
get one free. Any kind of deals, please. Just take these players off our hands.
And have you put petrol in your car that you can drive Xhaka to Milan?
Yes. I'm just waiting. I was just waiting for you, Mr. Cameraman, so you can come and take this picture because everybody wants to move on. I mean, you want to get in the car and move.
Yeah. So my next question is: we were early, and maybe this is due to circumstances. Earlier in the season, we were playing four at the back, a 4-2-1-3, with Aubameyang on the left-hand side, and we all wondered if Aubameyang could score more goals playing centrally. Well, we got to look at him in the second half of the season, and maybe I'll look into that later in terms of how many goals he got with a back four versus how many goals he got playing in a three. But do you think playing in the three was beneficial for Aubameyang to play alongside his mate Lacazette?
We've seen the bromance that they have, and we want the two of them to be banging in the goals together on the field. You understand? I know we don't have many options of the bench since Danny Welbeck and all that slept, but you know, if we can bring in the third striker, I would love that after all the major rebuilds, the important things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's sign off on last season and say, he could have given himself Unai Emery could have given himself breathing room with even with this set of players. We could have gotten. We all know we could have gotten top four. We could have won the Europa League if we'd have turned up, probably. But those are chances that went to begging.
Probably.
And now next year, talk about how much pressure Unai Emery will be in this coming season.
Look, if they are going to back him, which I mean includes total rebuild, he will be under a lot of pressure to, once he's gotten his own players, to induce his philosophy basically to all these players and have us trying to get back to where we belong. We belong in Champions League. We belong. We deserve having a Champions League side basically.
Yeah.
Full of these big names players, Upamecano, Umtitis. We should just be able to just go and buy them very easily. To be honest with you.
Here's what I see, and this is what the whole approach to this episode is about. Is that from my point of view, last season Unai Emery had to play his established players, had to play the established stars. I wanted him to introduce some of the younger players, but he only brought players in that he really, really needed to use, such as Ainsley Maitland-Niles. He needed to use him because we all know Lichtsteiner wasn't a backup or didn't prove to be a backup for Bellerin. So in those situations, Unai Emery was forced to use a younger player. He's brought Joe Willock in on a couple of occasions. He's had Emile Smith-Rowe in, who did score some goals in the Europa League. But speak to how Unai Emery was not really using the youngsters last year, and how I certainly feel he needs to use them next year. And what is your viewpoint on that?
My viewpoint is that I think the season was how would you his way. I think it was his season to basically judge who he needs to get removed of, who he needs to remove from the team, which is Deadwood, and who needs to come into the team, which is main squad players and backups, and also including the youngsters. And I honestly think he was afraid to be judged. Say for instance, he brought in the youngsters in the beginning of the season, and all of them flopped. Then we would be in I don't know, maybe a worse position.
Yeah.
And then the youngsters will be getting criticism as well as him.
You make a very good point, because you do make a very good point, because if he did not go with the established players, and we did not see how they would play and how badly some of them played, we would probably not be in favor, like we talked about yesterday, such huge numbers in favor of getting rid of Mustafi, in favor of getting rid of Mkhitaryan, in favor of removing Mesut Ozil from his huge pay packet. All of those things that the fans would probably not be as behind as much. We had to go through these growing pains, use established players. And do you feel like now Emery will realize he needs to open the game book up a little bit, and bring some of these academy players in as well, who have done really, really good things this past season?
I mean, we've only seen it now recently in the back end of the season, where we've said, oh my goodness, why didn't he use the likes of an Emile Smith-Rowe or a
Willock,
Saka or Willock.
Remember Joe Willock's cameo in the Europa League final.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
Even that we've lost Europa, I think it's opened our eyes more than if we had won maybe Europa. We wouldn't be hearing about maybe selling, the likes of Mkhitaryan and all the major changes that we need to make, which I personally think that it's possible. I think they've opened their eyes. If they don't do it, however, there's going to be very big backlash because all these changes are much needed,
Yeah. Do you know what I'm just thinking? We all saw the Raul and Vinay interview, right? And Raul talked about how these transfers take the guts of a whole year. They're talking to players throughout the year. So I'm thinking that Sven Misland had just left in January, right? So
yes.
I'm thinking that Sven has done some groundwork, had laid some groundwork in the transfer quest, and has identified some players that Raul just needs to pick up those contacts and continue the conversation, continue the groundwork that Sven had started. Do you think? And what's your level of confidence in watching that interview from Raul and Sven? And welcome in Arsenal TV, Richard. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, Richard.
So the question is, do you have confidence in Raul? And maybe there's already been some contacts out there that Sven had been pursuing. Maybe Raul is continuing the work with.
Ray, to be honest with you, if you tell me something like that, I get quite excited because I would love for him to carry on the work of Sven, basically so we don't panic, So we don't panic. So we've got something to believe in. Like
basically,
even though he's not around, somebody else would be carrying on those same contacts.
Yeah, basically, Raul had said that they don't just do the work through the summer. The work goes on through the season. They contact agents. They contact clubs. So my theory is that Sven is maybe already had done some of that work that Raul is just needed to continue to work on. And I felt quite confident in Raul being able to sell the club, even though we're not in the Champions League. What was your feeling about that?
Me too. I also feel, I'm not as nervous as I was, if you just said, Sven has left, but we will try our best, like that sounds to me like they don't know what they're doing. But if you say, however, on the other end, work carries on throughout the season, despite somebody leaving, I feel confident that you could possibly go out there and get a job done, these players that we need in order to push, in order to get us back to Champions League and to be fighting for the title.
All right, so here's the landscape the way I see it. We have a Manchester City team and a Liverpool team that are like streets ahead of everyone else right now. Would you agree with that?
Streets and miles and miles and miles away, miles ahead of.
Well, I'm a great believer in cycles, and every team has a turn at the top. And okay, if they keep recruiting and keep buying correctly, they can continue for quite a while. But I'm also a believer that not every team can go into the transfer market and make all the right decisions. So my theory is, in 2 or 3 to 5 years, let's say, Liverpool and Manchester City are not as strong as they are now. Should we be getting our house in order right now in order to be ready in about 3 years to challenge for something?
Yes, and if that means buying players of a lesser quality right now, and maybe not taking such a big gamble, with the players that are maybe 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 million, instead of like the 20 millions and the 15s and the 30s, those could be just as fruitful.
And something that's going to add to their credibility and something that they kind of have to get over the line now is getting Granit Xhaka over to Milan for about 50 million.
I'm waiting every day. I wake up every morning with the hopes that news is going to come out like immediately when I wake up.
Yeah.
Like, he's gone to Inter Milan for 50 million. I'm like, what? Am I still dreaming? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a very, very public test of what they can do on the backroom staff. What Raul can do. Can he get that deal over the line? Send them to Milan, get the money in the bank, so we can go spend some of it. I've got a question. I've got a comment from Richard, and it goes like this: They talk a good game, but it's time to show it with actions by getting quality players in, and for us to be challenging for the major titles. Thanks for that comment, Richard.
Exactly. It's all fair and well talking about it, but are you actually going to be about it? You're actually going to go and do that?
Yeah.
That's why I say sometimes maybe these things should be done quickly and quietly. I mean, how, Raymond, just tell me how good wouldn't it feel to be surprised by the news that we've sold Granit Xhaka. Not only have we sold him, we've replaced him with one or more quality players that we need in certain areas, like two centre backs, for example.
Yeah.
How amazing wouldn't that be? Like, to surprise us for once.
I mean, that would be amazing. I think we're, like I said yesterday, probably 2 weeks off of such things happening. But if the club goes out and gets the Granit Xhaka deal across the line, that's a huge amount of credibility that Raul will have stored in the bank. Arsenal fans will be
restored in us fans and supporters. Most importantly, we'll be like,
I think
this guy just.
I think Arsenal fans will be just as excited about us selling well as much as us buying well. You know what I mean? So we need to have that credibility out there, and Raul needs to demonstrate it. It has started by that list of players that we released, and now we need to see action in terms of Granit Xhaka moving on to Inter Milan, because any which way you cut it, we've had him for 3 years. If we would have just recouped that money at 35 million, we'd be happy. But if we can get 50, 45, that's a little bit of a profit. And it's showing, it's booking the trends of what has happened in the last few years in the background staff in terms of losing money on transfers.
Exactly. It almost breaks the cycle of our bad habits.
Yeah, if Arsenal fans can see the new regime starting to change things around, starting to move players, starting to get profit rather than losing profit, such as we talked about a Chesney going or a Kieran Gibbs, all these players going out for a loss. I have a question from Richard for you, Gundit News. What's your thoughts on Yannick Carrasco, rumored to be joining Arsenal? You take that first.
Bring him in right now. That's exciting. That to me is something to get excited about, Raymond.
And as
I'm saying it now, and I honestly hope I'm not wrong, but this should be an exciting signing. He's young. He's a dribbler.
Yeah,
he wants to come back to Europe.
He's still 24, 25 years old. He's played at Atletico Madrid. The standard over in Chinese league might not be so great, but he has got his payday. He's
played Champions League football before.
Yeah, he's played Champions League, and he has got his pay package from China. He's going to come back to Europe for a better kind of football. No disrespect to China, but no, we're excited about it. I know we talked already. Mahir and I have talked already about this, and I think this is a solid rumor, Richard, because we were after Carrasco in January as well. But obviously we didn't
have the funds to bring him through.
We didn't have the funds to get that over the line. Quite pointedly at the time, Emery came out in that press conference in January and said, The club has told me there will be no transfers coming in, which was a bitter pill to take at the time, right, Mayer?
Very, very better.
We couldn't do anything in January. Um, I started out this channel in late December, and one of my first comments was like, "Would you be happy with Gary Cahill?" And I was very underwhelmed at the time, but looking back at it, we could have used the Gary Cahill for the remainder of the season.
Exactly, exactly. I think the other one was Johnny Evans, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, yeah.
from Leicester.
And that's a little bit speaks to our fan base as well. We've become a little bit too used to fancy foreign signings.
Oh, world class signings, like, oh, this guy has to cost 60, 70 million in order for him
to be
be
Arsenal
considered
quality.
worthy of. Yeah,
We are not. We're not shopping in that market. You know what I mean?
not at all.
No.
Not at all.
We are a Europa League club until we prove otherwise. We have beaten Napoli. We have beaten other teams who are in the Champions League next season, but we're not there. We are not there. You know.
Nope.
So, tell me about what you think about Freddie Ljungberg coming onto the coaching staff and Stevie Bold going in the opposite direction and coaching the under-23s.
I think that's fantastic.
Great
But
news.
to be honest with you, I don't know if it seems to you, Ray personally, and or to Richard and Howie. Excuse me. I don't know if it seems to you guys is as if Bold has been doing any work for us. Like, thank you. I don't know if it seems to you guys as if he's been doing any work at all for Arsenal, because to me, it honestly seems like he's been doing, literally getting paid to sit around and do absolutely nothing.
Well, it seems just struck me like we talk about pampered players under Wenger. The players are pampered. We also had pampered coaching staff that all they could say to Wenger was, yes, boss. You know what I mean? You're right.
Exactly.
Yes, boss.
Just yes, man. Yes, boss.
Yeah.
Okay, boss. Okay, I'll do that, boss. No problem. Okay, boss.
I'm excited.
Instead of having their own opinion, and actually improving things.
I am excited about Freddie Ljungberg coming on because he's a vital link to the under-23s, and this is a great sign for me, and this is what sparked the title of this show. And what I wanted to talk about this weekend was Emery has got to change. Emery has got to change. Unai Emery has got to change his ways, right?
Yes. Yes, Stephen, I believe it. I believe in that as well.
He's definitely got to change things. Now, if we went down the road of using established players last year, and they obviously let him down. Now, he's made some mistakes on the way as well, in terms of his strategy, how he set the team up, all of that stuff. But I think by allowing Freddie Ljungberg to come onto the coaching staff, he's basically saying, you are like a second coach to me. Even though what's the guy, Carlos is his second coach, but he's going to use Freddie Ljungberg's knowledge of the under-23s because these under-23s need to get into his first team. Do you agree with that?
100% agree with that.
Now, it depends on how many, and you can't flood the team with under-23 players because that's not going to work. But in maximum of 3 positions, you could use the kids on any given match day, right?
Exactly. It would be nice to see a young player come in and want to prove themselves, want to fight for the badge.
Academy players who have grown up with the club and will wear the badge, will wear the badge on their heart more than maybe an established player.
Exactly. I'm I'm sure you've seen a lot of the podcasts, especially from some of the more passionate gooners, where they've been saying, you know, why hasn't he seen the potential in some of these youngsters rather than, to put on an old head who doesn't want to, which says a comfortable life at Arsenal basically.
Yeah.
But in essence, they don't actually do anything. The real work that needs to get done.
And that's why we're having this show. This show is basically a call to Unai Emery to change his ways a little bit. I think sometimes he's a little too cautious. I think he must realize in this summertime that he needs to be more adventurous in terms of what he's doing. I think we might have saw more adventure in the first. Can you cast your mind back through the whole season? I think, personally speaking, he had more adventure and more willingness to do things in the first half of the season, and I think he got a little bit.
Yeah, when there wasn't as much pressure on him as there was, towards the end.
Yeah.
Because the whole Arsenal have easy running, and we are in a Europa League final, and what do we do? Do we put all our eggs in one basket?
Yeah, and just like podcasters like us and fans, Arsenal fans, we all looked at the schedule and said, "Hey, we have it easy. Our last 8 games, because I know we talked about it here on this channel. Our last 8 games are easy compared to all the other teams' schedules. We get past Tottenham, when we get past Manchester United, which, looking back at that, we did superbly well to get 4 points from the Tottenham game and the Manchester United game. We were in a good position after that Manchester United game. We had 8 games in which we were going to. We were projecting how many points we were going to get. From those 8.
Yes, I remember that quite clearly.
From those 8 games, we were asking, we can get 21, we can get 20 points out of the last 8 games. And we all knew they were difficult games, but at the time we had just beaten Manchester United and just drawn unlucky to draw as well against Spurs.
I mean, it just shows, I love seeing heart. It doesn't matter how we lose, but we need to be seeing heart and fight and passion. Otherwise, without those, it's just, like football isn't anything without its fans.
Yeah. Now, you speak about heart, and I think the young under-23s probably understand what the club is all about more than Mustafi or Mkhitaryan. I love the club a little bit more.
Exactly. But then again, we were saying, maybe he was afraid to embarrass himself and to put a bad reputation on our youngsters as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
take those.
I think Emery he knew his challenge for this season was to get us back in the Champions League, and as we said many times on this show, he was just afraid too much to try young players. I think he really, really needs to change that way. That's why I did that little rhyme at the start. A new season, a new approach, a new Arsenal, a new coach, a new attitude, a new style, a new energy, a new file. So the new coach obviously is Unai Emery, but he needs to change his ways from last season. Very much in the same way Mahir, as he describes the team, needs to be a chameleon. He needs to be a chameleon for this season. He needs to change his colors and do things differently.
Sometimes, unfortunately, it was just a bit too stubborn. Stubborn with going with the likes of, putting certain competitions ahead of each other. Say, for instance, like Europa League is more important than Premier League.
Yeah.
So we're not even really going to try. So I'm going to put out the likes of, in my squad, I'm going to put out Mustafi and Lichtsteiner and, those, like... Yeah, man. He needs to change his act. I'm at a loss for words.
Well, these are players that Lichtsteiner's gone, but Mustafi needs to find a home this summer. And these are players that we cannot be talking about next season.
I do not want to be any little bits of how these players are studying our squad. Elneny, Jenkinson, Mustafi, and even the bigger players, if we can. I would love for the Granit Xhaka thing to be true, and for me to be phoning you and celebrating like, yes, brother, guess what?
Yeah.
We got 50 million in the bank. But most importantly, Granit Xhaka is gone.
We just need the Arsenal fans. All of us just need to be a little bit more patient. Like I said yesterday and last week, our main transfers came at the end of this month and the beginning of the next month. So round about the end of June and July, we will be finding out what happens. But we're going to see in the next week maybe how we are in terms of getting rid of these players that we need to get rid of and where the market is. And hopefully the Milan goes through. Milan, come and take Granit Xhaka, please. Milan, come and take.
And you know what? Maybe and give us 9 Golan. Maybe let's just rather swap for cash instead of cash.
Yeah.
I would have 9 Golan at our club. I would have loved him when he moved to Inter from Roma. I don't know why we didn't manage to put in a bid because imagine him playing with Torreira. I mean, really, how solid is that midfield?
We as a club have done very, very badly in the last few years in terms of signings and in terms of selling players, like we already mentioned. But we certainly do need to get better at that, and that's why all eyes right now will be on Raul and Vinay to come through and change the ways of the past.
Yeah, make things right, please, Raul, and I mean, we need you guys to make things right with our club.
Yeah. So just to wrap up this segment, and we'll just summarize. Unai Emery was a different coach. Was a different coach last year. He had to get the Champions League. This is my opinion, and you can give me your opinion right after this. He had to get Champions League because that's what the club wanted him to do for the club to move forward, and he used established players. Was afraid. I think he had a fear of using younger players, and it did not work. But as we discussed already, if he'd used those younger players, he would not have achieved Champions League football, and there would have been more criticism levied at him. Um, People are forgiving a little bit more and knowing that maybe we can get rid of some of these established players that have been pampered too long by Arsene Wenger, such as Granit Xhaka, and he's the first one that all eyes are going to be on. We need to move Granit Xhaka on. We need to get some money in the bank so we can go spend it. And looking forward, for me, we have to go young. We have to start bringing in some of these under 23 players. That's why I think we're very, very excited to have Freddie Lundberg come on to the coaching staff for next season. He knows these players inside out, and he can tell Unai Emery. He can tell Unai Emery what their strengths and weaknesses are. And Unai Emery is a good coach at putting certain players in good positions if they have the talent, as we've seen with Torreira and Guendouzi and Bernd Leno. So there's a track record there. So that's really how I feel about everything. It's time for Raul and Vinay to put up or shut up and put their actions into words. Now, if you just want to
summarize, put your money where their mouth is, basically.
And we have a third person in the chat room. So hi, do come on in and talk to us. Welcome into the circle. We are talking about Unai Emery. If you have any comments about how he needs to change his ways from last season, and I do believe next season we will see a different Unai Emery. He will have looked over his own performance over the summer and in last season and understand that he needs to change. What do you think, Mahir? Just to summarize all of last year and how do you see Unai Emery changing for next season, if at all?
Learning his best 11 once he's brought and being backed by our board. with money and bringing in his own players. Finding his best 11, finding out which of our youngsters are also who we can integrate best into our team, and also like strategizing better. For instance, if he brings in his own players, he can find out what his base 11 is and the best players to bring off the bench as well, for certain positions. Say, for instance, you got 3-4 players in the same position, like 2-3 wingers, for example. And then also not to be stubborn, like make changes as soon as possible, or analyze teams better where you need actually a back 4 instead of a back 3 versus like a Chelsea, or you need 2 up front when you're playing against the likes of another carrier bag FC, or
I always
no disrespect to any of the small teams, but what I'm trying to say is strategize better. Get to know his whole team.
And we do, obviously, with all of this being said, Nair, we do need to go out and sign some players. And I did a poll yesterday, and the majority of Arsenal fans believe we will sign 4 players or more.
To be honest with you, I feel the Pratt Anderson that is going to happen. The Carrasco is going to happen. Carrasco deal. And the Frazier deal, I believe, is going to happen. So that's already about 4.
Right, and we need a left back.
And Kieran Tierney. But I don't feel, even though these aren't the biggest names in the world, they could come on and do a decent job while we are rebuilding, while we can get back into Champions League.
Again, like we said, and you don't have to get the biggest players in the world. I think that's what we have to look at. Our strategy needs to be to go and find those players who are just about to have breakout seasons. So we're not in direct competition with what people call the established talent. So we need to find players who are a year or 2 away from having a breakout season. We need to identify those players.
And look, the sooner we can identify those players, the better, because who knows, maybe Carrasco and Frazier are just what we need, and they have that breakout season or 2, and we can use them as assets. Then further on down the line,
our transfer strategy needs to be thinking of having a really, really good team in about 2 or 3 seasons. For me.
To be honest with you, 2-3 seasons. 2-3 transfer windows.
Any Arsenal fan that wants instant success and think that we're going to win the league next year is deluded, as you would say.
Of course.
We can be competitive. We can do things in the cups. We need to challenge for top 4, obviously, and that old ugly Europa League we need to respect as well.
That's another competition we go with you next season.
Hello, Manchester United. We'll be competing with you next season.
It's almost like we're friends going into a new school together, or an old school.
I do not want to meet Manchester United in the final, because it's just like it's a European showcase, and you don't want to be playing an English team in Europe.
But like we really honestly shouldn't have gotten thrashed. If they just had a little bit of pride in them, they wouldn't have given us that performance. So.
So this has been a show about how we feel Unai Emery must change his ways from last season. I think we both believe that he will change his ways, but it's over to transfers and Raul and Vinay to show some put up. They have to show some evidence of what they've been talking about in that interview in terms of getting these deals over the line in this month.
We have been promising before, right? And like, I don't want it to be the same situation.
No, I
You
mean,
know?
we're going to see very, very soon in terms of not even in terms of buying players in, but we're going to be looking at them also in terms of selling players, and we need to get our targets in the door, and we need to get Freddie Lundberg on board on the coaching staff, and we need to start integrating some of the under 23s into the team as well. And by that way, I think you'll see a new approach next season.
I hope so. I hope so.
I hope so
Quite
too.
excited to see.
So this has been the 21st episode of Arsenal Fan Circle with my brother Mahir Abrams from Gunded News. And next weekend, Mahir, we will be talking about the fixture list.
Oh yeah, that I'm excited for as well. Can't wait to
The
see
fixtures.
facing.
Fixtures are coming out on, I think, Wednesday.
Wednesday. Okay.
We will have a show on.
We should have a good time with our subscribers and each other discussing the upcoming fixtures.
We will have a show next Saturday talking about the fixtures and how we think the season might pan out based on the fixtures. Is there something chewing your cables there? Are you typing?
Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, sorry, I was busy chewing on my cables.
Are you playing with a Rubik's Cube? Are you playing with a Rubik's Cube? Is that what you're doing?
Rubik's Cube is per se. It was on the PSP. I don't know how you picked that up, man.
I'm gonna leave that Rubik's Cube till my winter comes. You're heading towards winter now. We're heading towards summer. So this is the global.
Exactly.
This is the global aspect of Arsenal Fan Circle. The two hosts,
Definitely, yeah.
we're on opposite sides of the hemisphere, but we both love this club, and we want the best. We want the best for this club. Hey, if you're a new watcher, if you're new to the channel, right, Mahir? What are you supposed to do? Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button.
Hit that subscribe button, smash the like button, and also hit the bell for notifications so you know as soon as we go live. Because we love having you guys in the chats and live chats and interacting with us.
This is our first season. Do you think our second season should start next weekend because of the fixture list coming out, or should we wait till August?
Look, I think we should wait until the season starts.
Okay.
But I mean, in the meanwhile, we can still continue with season. We can still continue with the first season with our subscribers.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I'm sure we love them and they love us because they're always in the chats. You know, always talking amongst each other, always asking us questions, always wanting to find out, you know, what's the latest news, transfers. We're discussing player ratings. Whether we're doing live watch-alongs, which unfortunately our first live watch-along was disastrous.
Depressing.
Like, that was disastrous on another level.
Richard, thanks for stopping in, Richard.
We couldn't have been celebrating. Yeah, thanks, Richard, Noe, everybody else in the chats.
Noe, London Old School, watching and play back. Do appreciate you. All of our subscribers.
Much appreciated. All of them, new, old.
Anyone stopping by
us for the first time?
Anyone stopping by the channel, you catch us on a live chat, drop in, type in some things, say hi. Yaltzi Donkar comes in as well from time to time. So we appreciate all of you. If you want to also drop some comments down there, we'd like to eventually get to a point where we can say, everybody leave questions and we can address the questions on our weekend show. So we would love to do that as well, right? Right, Mahir?
Yeah, of course.
We'd like to introduce a question and answer session. Richard, thanks for coming in. Alex is just here on the back end of the show. I think.
Hmm.
Alex, we'll stick around for you for a couple more minutes. We're just going to summarize what we were talking about. It's my feeling that last season, Unai Emery needed to use the established players to gain the objective of Champions League, which was his remit from last year. And that patently did not work. Through the course of this show, Mahir and I have discovered that it was probably better that it worked out that way. He did not introduce the kids, did not introduce the young players until hopefully he's thinking about that this summertime. He's going to do it. We're gonna have. Do you want to stay on for a bit longer, Mahir? We got Alex and we've got London Old School.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk a little bit longer.
Talk a little bit longer. So
do they
drop
want to shoot us some questions?
drop any
Do they want to
questions.
shoot us a
Exactly.
few questions?
So yeah, we're saying that Unai Emery needed to use the established players last season, but now over the summer he must really be thinking that he needs to change things. And Freddie Lundberg has been brought into the fold on the coaching staff. That leads me to think that Unai Emery is going to try some of the younger players in the team. And
But you know what I was thinking just now? I was thinking everything has its due time. So can you see the way even Freddie Lundberg being introduced in? Maybe we can bring in the youngsters now. Can you see? Everything has its due time, basically.
Due time. Question from Alex for you, Mahir. What impact will Lundberg have on the first team?
To be honest with you, I really think he's going to bring in through some young talent, and like that young talent being able to basically carry themselves. I hope carry themselves very well being in the first team and playing with the likes of all our established heads, you know, the Torreiras and etc.
Yeah, I think that Unai Emery, Freddie Lundberg will bring things to Unai Emery's ear, and he'll be able to tell him what players, what they're all about, what they can do, what they can't do, and we're going to see Bennett. I think we're going to see good things next year. Not here.
Yeah, sorry, I just lost a bit of connection there. What were you guys discussing?
Basically answering the question that I think Freddie Lundberg will bring some good things to Unai Emery. He'll be able to tell him the strengths of the players, the young players, and what some things they're not good at. You know.
I mean, we discussed it actually with Alex and Richard, where we were saying we should follow Liverpool's model, basically. Basically, copy and paste.
Copy and paste, yeah.
I think it'll be very healthy to get the correct get the correct balance of young players and established players, you know.
And look, as we mentioned, and maybe we're beating the same drum again, but Liverpool bought players from everywhere, all over Europe. Klopp bought players from Southampton, from Stoke, from all of these different teams.
And that's another thing, right?
Yeah.
If they're already established in the Premier League, such as, you know, like Liverpool bought from Southampton, they may be able to gel better. It goes back to the likes of we've been linked to Pratt and Anderson from Sampdoria, having Torreira already in our squad. The three of them could link up and make each other better players.
And they must have played together with Torreira as well. One season removed. But anyway, if there are no other questions, I think we should sign off there. Like we said, next weekend, next Saturday, we are going to talk about the Premier League fixtures are released on Wednesday. We will talk about those Premier League fixtures and how they will probably impact our season, what shape our season can take. But this has been another episode of Arsenal fan circle. Join us next Saturday. Until then, we are out of here. Gundan News has gone. Like I said, subscribe down there if you're new. You're watching this on playback. Hit the bell notification and smash that like button. Until next Saturday, we're out of here. Thanks for stopping by and thanks for watching.